Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the Ragni Show. We are live, and it just so happens to be flashback time because it's Totally Driven Thursday with the one and only, my, my brother from another mother, my co host of Totally Driven Radio, author extraordinaire, Mr. Nick Wilkinson. What's up, buddy?
I miss that, man. You used to do the intro. You were like the man, the author. Like that used to be my every week like pick me up. Oh
Good
man, how you
times,
doing?
man. Good, man. Good. It's good to see your face. Yeah, that was the one thing. And it's funny. Like we used to talk about it every week. Wouldn't it be so cool if we had video to do the
Yep,
show with? And then the pandemic happens, and now we have video.
yep. It's crazy how things happen, man.
So crazy. So,
Been a
so
while.
yeah, like the scary part is it's years. Like it's multiple years, man.
Well, I was on the live stream when you were doing when you were live listening a couple weeks ago. I was in the chat room talking to the peeps too.
That was
But
fun.
this is the first time I think we've done anything. Probably you're right. Probably like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
It's
It's
crazy.
funny because I even forgot. We started doing the basic show.
Right. And then we kind of, well, like right around that time was pandemic, like it's right when it took off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And for a while there, like you weren't really feeling the podcast anymore. You had so much work that needed to be done, and you were getting the picking stuff off the ground, and you know what I mean?
I'm still like it's like nothing's changed. Like I say to myself every day, I have no time to be doing this. What the fuck am I doing? Like
I know, man. Like we need like 10 more hours in the day just to get stuff done.
it's ridiculous. It really is. I don't understand. I've been saying to Coco like we need to make a video for the reselling thing, and I want to emphasize on just that. Like I don't know, like watching all these other resellers how they're doing it. I don't understand, especially if it's a one person business, how
Right.
these people are sourcing, listing, packing, and doing videos by themselves. There's two of us, and like we're staring at each other like, how the hell do you do it all?
Right. People don't understand, man. You're putting up hundreds of listings a day. That takes time. You know what I mean? And that's that. they just, right now. I'm trying to help this book publishing company promote a couple titles that are coming out in the future, and it's just like when I finish all the work for one of the titles, I'm like, oh wow, okay, so I have to repeat that for three more titles now. You know what I mean? Like, so I tend to give myself days. You know what I mean? Like this title gets Monday and Tuesday, this title gets Wednesday and Thursday. If not, man, like you said, you end up swamped. You know what I mean? And
The,
then
the,
do you get to the point where you have so much work to do that you just like completely shut down for a day or two and you're just like I can't focus, I can't, you know what I mean? You need to
oh
recharge that
yeah,
battery.
oh yeah. Like yesterday, I mean, we have going into yesterday, we had 1,800 listings on eBay,
Wow.
and in our dining room was like another 100 items waiting to be listed. And our we have the one room that's like the storage room, and we have a couple closets through the house that are filled, and it's just like everything was overflowing in a mess. I'm like, I need to like organize, and I spent yesterday was like 10 hours of just organizing,
Organizing,
and,
right.
and now I have like a huge um pile by my front door that I need to load the car up and go drop off a Goodwill and clear out stuff.
So do you recycle stuff like that? You so if something doesn't sell, it's been listed for a while, you'll toss it after a while, send it back to Goodwill, send it back
That's
to the
what I'm
demons
doing.
in the bins.
Yeah, yeah, right. But I drop it at other locations. This way, I don't have to see it again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't get tempted to rebuy it. That's cool.
But enough about me and my world. This is about you tonight, man.
All
Because
right.
you like, and I've said this, since I've known you. It's like 10 years now. like the two things that always stood out about you, and I've always said this to you, like number one was the first thing when we first started talking, when you first came on Toadrum Radio when it was me and Frank. I said you have a amazing voice and it's so articulate and really like I was like, damn, that dude really knows what the hell he's talking about. He's really smart dude.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's the wrestling though, right? Like I think I just have a really strong like gift for bullshit. Like
well, wrestling teaches you how to talk, whether it's uh, legit or bullshit.
absolutely. You know, there's some people out there where you remember back on the show, somebody will just start about a topic, and if you don't know about the topic, there's two things you can do. You can freeze up, and that makes for a terrible radio show, or you can bullshit your way through it and tell them it's awesome and pull a Frank and be like, it was
Paul
some of your
Frank.
best work.
He had like a multiple choice of three lines every week that he would use. And it was all saying the same thing. Like this,
Absolutely.
this is your best work, or this is amazing. I can't believe how great this is. And yeah, yeah,
The crazy thing is, dude, like my voice doesn't sound anything like it does in my head. Like I hate my voice so much. It's high pitched and it's like shrill and it's grating in my brain, and it sounds completely different to other people, and I can't wrap my head around that. Like
even when you listen to recordings of it.
recently I've been able to listen to some recordings and been like, you know what, that was pretty good. That was, especially what I'm learning more about putting like emotion and different like if inflections into what I'm reading and trying to make it sound more natural. So
Right.
I'm relatively happy. The link that I shared with you earlier, the teaser trailer, I actually did the voice for Benjamin Franklin in that. I adjusted like the pitch and the tone so it didn't exactly sound like me, but I was pretty happy with that. I was like, yeah, I could get into that. That's cool.
That was super cool.
And I've done like a trailer for a different book where it was like three or four superheroes and I did like all their voices, and
I saw that one. Yeah.
so it's different now. Like writing stories and stuff, people want you to do like readings, and whether it's live like this or pre-recorded, they want to hear you read your story. So you have to kind of learn to get kind of outside of your comfort zone a little bit. So fortunately, all my years with you guys, like when I remember back to the first day I called in and how my heart was racing, I could barely get the words out of my mouth to talk about. It was like Bond girls that we were talking about.
That's right.
And
That's
I
right.
just, I was like stuttering and stammering. I was so uncomfortable. So I get it. You know what I mean? Like now, this is just how we talk to each other. You know what I mean? Like, but back then it was pretty wild.
And that really was. I'm pretty sure it was 10 years ago.
If I'm pretty sure it was too. Pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. So the other thing that always stuck out to me, once after that first episode with the Bond girls 10 years ago, when we really started talking more and more, and you were telling me about your background in writing and stuff like that, and then when I started reading your writings, I was like, oh shit, this dude's the real deal. This is legit, like writing, and he knows how to like professional because you were coming up and saying words in your stories, and I was like, I don't even know what these words are. This is above my pay grade, you know?
That's funny though. Yeah. And much like anybody, I think actors and podcasters and anybody in the entertainment business, really, I think you get this sense of like, they call it like imposter syndrome, where you start to feel like you're faking it. You know what I mean? And in
Yeah,
like, see, again, like to throw it back to wrestling though, like that's what you do. You know what I
mhm,
mean? You fake it till you make it. You can't work. You work somebody who can work. You know what I mean? Like
right,
so out here, you put out the stories and you hope that a publisher picks them up. You know what I mean? And they read them and they send rejection letters and acceptance letters. It is high pressure. You know what I mean? And I've been rejected plenty of times. You know what I mean? And some I believe are completely valid and some not. But it weighs on you and you start to think that like, maybe I'm a good writer for me, but not for, the
right.
audience out there, the more general public. But recently, in the last couple of years, I've found a couple publishing companies and a lot of friends that are also authors who are just like really supportive, and like they'll tell you, I like this, I don't like this, you should think about changing this. And even when you don't listen to their advice, they're still like, well, you made the choice, you have to live with it. You know what I mean? And when you start to get that, like, remember when you won the Philly Award for like the best DJ in Philly?
Hmm.
It's that same feeling, like your peers are now starting to tell you, "Hey man, knock it off. You're good enough." You know what I
Right.
mean? And it changes the game really, because once you start believing in yourself, then like, you know, you start trying weirder things, you start doing different things, you start going past being an author. And that's what the book we're talking about tonight, that's really, it goes past writing. I have a story in that book, but it's my book too, you know what I mean? Like, I came up with the concept and I pitched it
Okay.
to the publisher. It was a different publishing company, this company called Raven and Drake. And I pitched it to them. They were like, if you have ideas for, you know, a book, let me know. And I was like, hey, why don't we do a book where like it's a museum almost, and there's like this sort of scary, like crypt keeper, like curator, and you pick up an object and you're like, every single object there has like its own like scary dark story. And then
Hmm.
and so like you could do a million stories depending on how large that museum is. And they were like, you know what, we love it. Go out and find your authors. And I had this idea that
Okay.
I was going to pick authors that I liked. I was going to pick authors that had lots of experience. I was going to pick authors that had very little experience. And I was going to put them all together, and we were going to work on this as a group. You know what I mean? Like, we were going to learn from each other, we were going to look at each other's styles, we were going to create an atmosphere. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And I think that's what we did. We used Facebook groups and Google Docs and all that to make it happen. And each person came to me and were like, okay, this is the idea I have for a haunted or an enchanted object or something like that. So we each had our own story. And then after that, after everybody submitted the stories, the company shut down. So
Are you
I
sure
had
this
this,
isn't wrestling?
right. No, exactly. So I had this whole completed book. Basically, it hadn't been edited yet because I hadn't sent it to the company. And I was like, crap, what am I going to do? It's been like 6 months. Everybody's worked so hard on this. So I said, you know what? It's a little bit crazy, but let's just finish the book. We'll present the book to different publishing companies, and somebody's going to love it or they won't. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
and so I ended up editing the book with Helen. She
Okay.
actually used to be an editor at the newspaper in Philadelphia, so it worked out really well. And we just bounced ideas off of each other. And eventually, you have to. It's different than writing, because you're telling a story individually, but you're also, with 10 stories, you have to sort of like wrestling. Actually, you have to build the show. It can't just be, you know, all action. It can't just be all drama. It can't just be all comedy. You have to kind of weave it together. So that was something new that I kind of had to learn, and I had to read a lot of other books and kind of decide what I liked and I didn't like. But eventually, this company, Black Ink Fiction, I took it to them and I said, it's been edited. We have everything except for the cover. And I sent it over to them, and they're like, you know what, dude, we love it. We'll put it out. And they came up with a really nice cover based on some concepts that we threw at them. And that was it, man. It just sparked some creativity. And now I have three other anthologies that are coming that are like from my ideas and with authors that I chose. But this one is the Private Vault of Aliester Crowley, who's like, if you're into horror, you know
Mr.
who he is.
Crowley.
Right, right. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. But it's so he was an occultist, so it would make sense that he collected all of these kind of doodads. And there's watches, and there's, my story is about a pen, an old like reed stylus that you dip into ink. And
Okay.
my story actually takes place at the Old Swedes Church in Philadelphia. It's the second oldest church in America. And it's Benjamin Franklin and a bunch of other like aristocrats, and they're at like a party with this like troupe of dancers, and they're dancing and they're eating and acting like bawdy gentlemen, and it turns out that they're there for the pen, and they're actually like assassins, and it's a really fun story, I think, and it's got a nice swerve at the end too. I wouldn't call it traditional horror, but there are like supernatural elements to it, and the pen is supposed to be this pen that the goddess Inara gave to the world's first known author. And I just thought that was a really cool thing. Like, the pen is mightier than the sword, you know what I mean?
Right.
And instead of having like something with like just werewolves or vampires, and I'm not knocking that. Like, there's definitely a place for that, and I have plenty of werewolf and vampire stories out there. But it was just something different, you know what I mean? And it gave a little ode to Philly. And I actually did like a ton of research. I paid to take a drone tour of the old Swedes church so that I knew exactly what it looked like when I was writing the book. So, because I
No
really wanted
way.
to know what the inside of it looked like. You know what I mean? I wanted to know what
Right.
colors it was, what the style of architecture was. I wanted to be truthful when I was saying that. So I put it all out there. They sent the drone through real slow. I saw every corner of it. I called somebody and I talked to somebody there about what it sounded like at night. Could you hear the boats? Could you hear the river? Because it's very close to the Delaware. And I wanted to
Okay.
know, like, what does it smell like? What kind of trees are outside? So that I could really paint a full picture of like being there. You know what I mean?
That's deep, dude. That's
Yeah,
really deep. I love that.
it was cool. It was a fun experience, and everybody that participated in the book did sort of the same thing within their own limitations and everything, and they really crafted a bunch of just really amazing stories, and it's gotten tons of feedback. We're currently ranked in Canada and in like the low 300s in all of horror anthologies, and like I think we can get to number one with a little push.
So all right. So let me ask you this: as you're putting this together, like, is it all one giant story? Is it, or it's multiple with all the different authors? Like, it's not like you were saying like each person has like an item. Like, did you say, all right, well, here's your item. Like, you have the pen. Somebody's got a watch. Somebody's got this. Somebody's got that. Is that the way you laid it out, or you let each person like pick their own and just go with it?
So they pitched their thing to me. So one of them, so like take one of them as a snow globe, and he was like, "This is what I want to do. This is kind of the story." And I said, "Okay, run with it." The main
Okay.
character, the curator, at the very beginning of each story, there's like a little curator's notes, and it just says like, this is a crazy item. It was, it was found in the vault, and there's another item that was in the vault, and then it disappeared for a couple years, and then it just reappeared, and you get to
Hmm.
kind of learn the story of what happened to it. So they're very much self-contained stories, but there's
Cool.
just like a tiny little bit of overlap where they might mention the vault or they might mention the curator. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not necessarily about how it got to the vault. Those are
Hmm.
different stories. This is just a snapshot in time of like one or two evil things that this thing is responsible for. Or in my case, the pen. They're trying to find the pen in mine, basically. So it's
That's wild.
yeah, so each person kind of got to do what they wanted to do. It could be, we have some that are really funny, and we have some that are really scary, and kind of
Hmm.
everything in between. Some that lean a little bit more on like mythology and stuff like that. So it's really cool. We have this one dude, Declan. Their pronouns are they, them, and Declan. Okay, so Declan had a really cool idea, and it was like it was a little avant-garde even for me. And I was like, you know what? I don't care. Just because it's not my style doesn't mean it's
Right.
not somebody's style. And the more Declan wrote about it, the more I was like, I get this. Like,
Hmm.
I dig it. It's different, and like we all get a profit share, but like more importantly, like that made it worth it to me. You know what I mean? Like, I helped that kid grow. You know what I mean? I helped them express themselves in a way that was like maybe some other publishers, and I'm not nobody specific, but maybe somebody else wouldn't have taken a risk on a story like
Right.
that. And I think it's a bold story, man, and a good addition to the book. Like, and there's so much. Like, I'm talking about that one specific, but it would be a shame not to just say that everybody did a phenomenal job, and they worked on it. It was like a year long that it took us to get
Oh
this
wow.
where it
Okay.
was. I mean, we worked on this. We talked to each other about everything, and I think it shows. You know what I mean?
I mean, honestly, it sounds like, again, relating it to like wrestling, like basically you were the booker
Right.
slash matchmaker, putting it all together, and you got your 10 matches, which become these 10 stories, and it culminated into this book.
Right, at 100%, and the main event ends up being the book itself.
That's
You
awesome.
know, and like some shows will go up and down with the entertainment and the comedy and stuff. And I decided more on a sort of a slow rise and a build in like the intensity. And I think that I also think that was a bold choice. But I've gotten some feedback on the Amazon reviews saying that they really appreciated that. So we took a chance, man, and there's probably going to be a sequel, I'm guessing.
That's freaking awesome, dude. Here we have DLM writings. You said horror. I said coming of age psychological thriller.
I can definitely see that 100%. I mean, that's what the beautiful part about these anthologies, and for anybody that doesn't know, an anthology is just a book that has a certain number of short stories by different authors.
Mhm.
Sometimes it could be like two or three stories, sometimes it could be one, sometimes they could be like 500 words, and other times they could be like 7,000 words. I think I clocked in somewhere around the 5 or 6,000 word mark. Declan, who I mentioned earlier, went to like 10, I think, and it was great. Like there's another gentleman that went pretty high too, but it was totally worth it story wise.
So when you're getting these authors together and putting this all together, do you set a limit, or you just say go with it?
I mean, okay, so when a publisher does it, like Black Ink Fiction, the place that ended up publishing us, they'll put out a call that says, we're looking for stories about mermaids, and it should be 6,000 words, and they have their own criteria. I tried to do that, but at the same time, like me, like the story's as long as the story is. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, so I kind of told everybody, tell your story. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like if it's too long, we'll work it out, and if it's not long enough, we'll work it out. You know what I mean? And I think that's where the pacing goes. Much like we were talking about booking a show. Some matches are going to be short. Some of the older guys are going to take their time. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's important to not put all the long stories together and not put all the short. It's really about pacing and kind of building that main event, so to speak.
Dude, I mean, that's like really cool. I mean, even like the back, the making of it, like you're saying, the pacing and putting it all together. That's like a really interesting story.
It is, man. People don't realize how many elements there are that really go into, getting a book from like concept to publication.
Hmm.
And of course, that's not even talking about like reviews and advertising and getting people to read it, and you know what I mean? Like that's
That's
a
a
whole
whole
different
nother
ballgame.
world, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I want to also comment on this too, because the DLM writing also said, "I love seeing how happy it makes you," and I personally also too, because I've always felt you need to be writing your ass off, and over the last few years, I've been seeing you do that, and doing something like this with the Aliester Crowley book anthology, and writing all these other short stories. I know you're doing long format stories and books and all. Like, you were meant to be doing that, and it makes me happy to see you doing this, because I know the talent you have. I know the mind you have too to create, and it's truly a beautiful thing seeing you do this.
The last couple years it's been about producing stories, getting stories accepted. And this year I decided that I was going to slow down on the number of stories that I wrote, and instead I was going to focus on telling tales that I really want to tell. Does that
Mm.
make sense? Like,
Yeah.
so I work with this company, Black Ink Fiction, and they have some amazing stuff coming out. Like I'm genuinely excited. I have some cowboy stories coming out. I have some stories that are written in like the local area where I live now. There's so much. I have a whole book coming out. It's cryptids versus historical people, and my story is Betty White with the shotgun, and it's Betty White at 19 years old fighting off what's basically a mountain lion in the desert. And there's some really crazy stories that were submitted to that one. That was my idea too. And I work with this other company, House of Loki, and this guy Callum, this beautiful, brilliant man. He I don't even know how to explain it to you, dude. Like, nobody has ever been more supportive in my life. You know what I mean? Like, he brought me in. He's like, "Hey, we're doing this. It's an invite only story about a high school that's kind of wacky." And I pitched my idea, and people. That's actually finished. My final draft was submitted, and people loved it so much that some other people used some of my characters in their stories. And that's when, like, my mindset changed, and I was like, I'm an idiot. Why do I keep doubting myself? You know what I mean? If people that I respect me,
Yeah.
then it's all love. You know what I mean? Like, and ever since then, I've been doing a little bit more. I've been doing like Filipino folklore stories.
Hmm.
I wrote one in a children's book that was kind of dedicated to my sister, and I have a couple more out there, and some poems that are in these kids' books too. So I'm kind of switching back and forth between like adult and young adult horror, and then like kids books that are like legitimately like my book is like my story. Seco Island is like Filipino Alice in Wonderland. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, and it's totally different than the other stuff that I write. But I think I figured out that like not everybody's meant to write like a novel. Not everybody's a novelist, and that's okay, man. You know what I mean? Like, be a short story guy, be a poet, write historical fiction. It doesn't really matter as long as you're telling the stories that you want to tell. You can You'll find a home for those stories. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I was telling you
The
all
thing
those
that
years that you need to tell your damn stories.
I need somebody to work with me to do that.
You do. Somebody with experience. So right
the
now,
the
I'm
thing that
also.
always
Go ahead.
I was going to say the thing that always impressed me though, and like boggles my mind, and I used to ask you this because I know you used to do this, and I'm sure you still do. You don't like. I would have to write one story and stick to that and
Right.
finish it. I know you have like 18 stories going at one time that you're working on, and you bounce back and forth, and I don't know how the hell you do that.
So I like to think that it's about getting to know my characters, right? So like the Benjamin Franklin one was particularly hard because there's a lot of history there, and
Hmm.
Benjamin Franklin is a known person. So I tend to write in. I'll write some, and then I'll kind of let it sit, and I'll think about it, throughout the day, or when I'm writing other things, or when I'm in the shower. It really doesn't matter, and you try to think about like how would these characters react, how would they respond, so that instead of being like, and then he went to the store, and then he got some milk, and then he went home, and then he drank the milk. You know what I mean? So instead, I want to think about like if it was me and I was going to the store, what would that look like? And that's when I let it sit for a while, and then I'll go back to it, and I'll be like, okay, so he went to the store, but we're talking about 1883. What store did he go to? And then I'll start to kind of build from there, like, what I want to happen. A lot of times I write the way that movies are seen in scenes, and then I later go back and sort of interconnect them. So I don't
Mm.
start at the beginning of the story or the end of the story. If a lot of times it starts with a scene, you know what I mean? Like, somebody will put up that there's a call for a story about dragons, and I'll be like, well, that's stupid. I'm not writing a story about dragons. Then I'll be in the shower and I'll be like, well, what makes it stupid? And I'll be like, okay, well, what if I make a story that's not about that? And then I'll just start thinking about, well, what's the opposite of, you know what I mean? And or what could a weird dragon be like? And I came up with this really cool idea based on like Filipino folklore about this dragon that swallows the moon, and and in that folklore story, the dragon's the bad guy of the story. And I was like, you know what, though, I'm changing that. We're going to change it. This dragon's going to be a good guy. We're going to give him a reason for swallowing the moon, and then they're going to give
Mm.
birth to the new moon. You know what I mean? And so like I like to do weird things and change things up, and play with the way that people think about things. So if I can come up with just a kooky idea is what it really amounts to. I just try to like I'll run with it, and then I'll put it aside, and then sometimes I guess you were a musician, so I think you can relate to sometimes like you just have to be in the mood to make certain music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm just in a jolly mood and you can't sit down and write horror that way. You know what I mean? Like, so I have to switch to something that's a little more funny and a little more. That's why I try to keep my different stories open. And honestly, I'm also a procrastinator. Like every story, you're right. I have, I think, 18 stories currently in some form of, and like, nine of them could be finished tomorrow if I just sat down one day and finished them, but I'm lazy. So
Now, I know this from doing a show at you for 8 years. Um, you're also all over the place with your, which I'm sure is like an inspiration for you, your TV and movie world. And you are always been a big fan of the teen angst stuff, the
absolutely.
superhero stuff,
Absolutely.
and then there's western stuff you're into. Like you really are all over the place, and the dramas like the Chicago PD and Chicago Fire and stuff like that. Um, and I know how important the world of TV is to you. Have you thought about maybe trying to make like any of these short stories into like a like little YouTube short film thing or
So I have, again with that company, Black Ink Fiction. They had a movie madness, is what it was called, and they were
okay.
supposed to be all stories that related somehow around movie theaters and theater culture and stuff like that. So my story, Tiny Tessa, which is about like a multiplex that's being there's like a little girl murderer with a knife that's like killing people running around, and you can't tell where she is because she's dressed like a kid. It turns out that she's not a kid, she's like a dwarf, and she's been like disfigured, so she wears all these costumes. That actually started out as a screenplay for like a low budget horror movie that I was writing, and I just kind of adapted it for the book because I thought it was a good story. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I wanted it to get out there so that if anybody else read it and was like, maybe we could turn this into a movie or something. I just you know what I mean? But it's it's just so hard like getting any traction to get like a TV or a movie deal, or but like I would have to do it myself, and that's it's a lot of work. I'm not saying I can't do it because I teach myself how to do stuff every day, but it would be difficult, I think,
It's a lot, yeah.
at this point in my life anyway. I also have a 3 year old running around constantly, so keep that in mind. Like 44 years old, and 90% of my energy goes to her. So
If you can only bottle some of hers.
I'm telling you, man. But one thing that I've been thinking about lately is like podcast dramas, like maybe like an audio drama of the story with different people doing the voices and then like an overall narrator. That might be something that I would be definitely interested in. But again, like it's kind of one of this, and you have to know people that know people, and find like you just have to get the right equipment to record everything, and much like podcasting, you know what I mean? When we were trying to figure it all out.
Right. And we had talked about that too. Like we had tossed that idea around,
Way
putting
back in the
together.
day.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I mean that's like the old throwback to the old, before the TVs there was the radio dramas. And I think that's I mean, honestly, I know there's things like that out there now with podcasting is these podcast dramas. I think that's an amazing idea.
Absolutely. I do too. I think it's only a matter of time. Right now, I'm trying to put my skills that I learned in wrestling and on the show and everything to use to help promote books as opposed to, TV shows or live events or anything like that. So I've been making like these teaser videos, and I've been trying to learn a little bit more about like audio and video editing. And I'm going to get people to I want to do like the authors, maybe they can send me a minute or two of them reading their stories so I can make like a nice little teaser, and then I give that to them, and then they share it out among their social media network, and then other authors, because it's not about them, they can like that, they can share that, and it's still
Right.
it still puts the book out there over and over and over and over again. And the biggest thing the roadblock right now is that authors aren't necessarily business people. You know what I mean? And to get them in that marketing, advertising, promotion, handing out flyers mindset, it's hard sometimes because it's taking people way out of their comfort zone. So I just
Right.
thought that, like, if that was the case, like, why can't I step in and help with that? You know what I mean? Like, why can't my experience and and I'm not, there's people out there that are way better at me than at video editing and special effects and all that stuff, but like, you don't have to win an Academy Award to promote a book. You know what I mean? Like
It's
people
true.
they think a little too hard on like how high quality it needs to be. And I'm not saying, I think mine was pretty nice, pretty high quality. I spent $4 on that, and that was for my custom intro, and that's for me. I use that for every video I do. Everything else was free. You know what I mean? So hey, anything
Yeah,
that'll help produce sales, right?
that thing came out awesome, dude. And I sent you the message before we went live too, saying you need to do more of that, a lot more of those too.
I think so. I think you're right. And now that I got it figured out, it's almost like there's a template and I can just swap out, you know what I mean? The one part of it is just the book cover. I can swap out different covers. Another part of it, you know what I mean? And just, I could probably produce 10 of them a day if I worked hard at it.
Wow,
So, yeah, I mean,
interesting. So
yeah,
so
and I
going back
actually
to
brought the
the
book with
Aliester Crowley book.
me. This is the one I'm going to send you. I wanted to
So
sign
so
it
how many
first.
pages is
That's a
how
great
many
question.
pages is the book?
The book is let's see. Okay. 219 pages.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah. So
that's cool.
that's
That's freaking awesome.
and this is the first time that I've ever had a book that says it says edited by Nicholas Wilkinson. So like I got another little, feather in my cap, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know what I
So
mean?
so I mean, you must have like a stack now of books growing over the last few years.
36.
Get the frig out of here.
36. Each one of them has multiple probably multiple stories in them, or some of them as many as 5 small stories. Most of them have 2 probably. So by the end of this year, I'm hoping to be right around like 60. So
Holy cow!
and then I have an Amazon Vela, which is like even shorter stories that people pay prescription people pay subscription for, so they can spend a couple tokens to read one story, then they can spend a couple to read more, and you can do it like
Hmm,
chapter by chapter, so you only have to write one chapter at a time. I tend to do it in like bursts of like poems and real short stories that have like a theme. So like one of mine is like all about like life and death, so like all of the
okay.
poems or all of the short stories would be kind of along that theme. And you can read one of them, you can read all of them. It just depends on how many tokens you have or what you're willing to spend. And
Hmm.
that's actually been really good to me. I mean, that thing pays out. It's not much, man, but I think you know that. But like $20 to $30 a month is still like honest weed money. You know what I mean? It's something. It's
That's
feed for the goats.
right.
You know what I mean?
It all adds up.
And it does, man. And honestly, like, I don't tell stories. Like, this is gonna sound so like corny, but like, I don't. I'm not telling stories for the money. Like, I'm telling stories because if I don't get them out of my head, it's all I'm gonna hear. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Right.
it's great that there's a little tiny itty bitty bit of money involved, but there's also like deep, true friendships that I'm starting to realize. Like, I have a group of people right now that I talk to from Australia, from the Netherlands, from
Hmm.
Ireland, from Massachusetts, like, and we talk to each other every single day, and we share our stories and our characters and our, just anything that could possibly, be going on in in our real lives, and also with our writing. And like, that's different than when I was writing 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it's very much not a everybody out for themselves situation. Like, they know that just because my story's good doesn't mean that their story isn't good, and vice versa.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a level of maturity there, and like, and also a level of immaturity. Don't get it wrong. Like, but it's been a game changer. You know what I mean? To have like a support system of other like-minded people that also go through what you go through, because nobody will ever understand what the rejection and acceptance process is like until you've been through it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You throw those stories out there that you spent months on, and then you wait. Sometimes you wait for months before you hear back, just to hear back if it was good enough to be accepted or rejected. Some places are nice enough to tell you why they rejected it. Most places are just like, not at this time. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it can be brutal, and so to have people that are there in the trenches with you too, like, it means the world.
So, all right. So when you're sending these stories out to these publishers, two things.
Yeah.
One, are you scared that they could steal your story? And
So,
two, how do you know? I mean, I guess they have somebody actually reading through the story to see if they want it or not.
well, absolutely. So, let me talk about the first one. It happens. People steal your shit.
Right.
I've been fortunate enough that nobody has taken my stuff that I know about, but I actively don't look into it either, because I know how angry it'll make me if I find out it's happening. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have to trust your gut, and you have to do a little bit of research. I went with different companies that other authors that I respected were going to.
Hmm.
I went to a company like Black Ink Fiction. They have something like, I'm probably going to get it all wrong, but they have like 40 plus books on Amazon.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, this isn't a fly by night place. You know what I mean? And they have a professional website. They have somebody
Okay.
who's dedicated specifically to reading your stories and sending out. You know what I mean? So it really just depends on how they present themselves. But it happens. It happens to a lot. I know a lot of people that it has happened to, and it sucks. And when you're talking about like people like us who don't operate with, major budgets or anything like that, there's not a
Right.
whole lot of legal wiggle room that you have either. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so it's, yeah. And then the second one, am I scared? Well, what am I scared it's going to get stolen? And then what was the second one?
Oh, I mean, I guess they have actual staff of people that start reading your story to see if they like it or not.
So yeah, so my next one, the one with the Betty White with the shotgun story, because that's my call, because I came up with the idea and I asked them if they would run with it. I'm the editor, so it's my job. So what'll happen is it'll say like, all stories have to be submitted by July 1st. And then on July 1st, they'll have all the stories in a big folder, and they'll send it to me in Google Docs, and it'll have, however many were submitted. Sometimes it's just enough for the book. Sometimes it's hundreds, and I have to go through them, and I have to decide if they're good enough, and I have to be the person that rejects or accepts. And that's brutal too. You know what I mean? Especially when you make friends with writers and stuff. But at the end of the
Right.
day, you have to know what you're looking for. You have to know what, is best for the book. And just because you reject somebody's story doesn't mean that it doesn't. I've had stories that were rejected by one company and picked up by another one the next day. You know what I mean? It's not really a measure of your story being good or bad. It's just, is it a good or bad fit for this
This
project?
book. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, as an editor, sometimes I'll send them notes, and I'll be like, look, I think there's a little too much comedy in here. Maybe if we get rid of this and put this in there. Sometimes they're receptive to it and they make the changes and it's a better story. Other times they tell me to go pound sand, you know what I mean? Because they have an idea of the story that they want to tell. And that's cool too. They're just maybe not a place for it with me. You know what I mean? So it sucks, but yeah. So for if I'm doing it, I imagine there's 10 other people out there doing it for that one company alone. For
Right.
House of Loki, the other one that I do, I think there's three of them that are dedicated to like just reading these stories, and that's a time commitment too. You know, you're reading
Right.
26,000 word stories in a week, trying to figure out what fits, what doesn't. Like they put in a lot of hard work, and that's not even if they have their own story to do for the book too. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm a pretty stickler for the rules. So like, if I write a story for the book and I'm the editor, I always take it to somebody else to edit. Like, I could probably just edit my own story, but like, that's not fair. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Now, how about I was it difficult for you knowing you, especially over the last few years, that you've really have amped up all the writing and, like you said, 30 something books. Um, was it difficult for you to start actually submitting to all these different people and editors and companies to try to get published?
So yeah, man. How it all started was I joined this group and they had a contest to write a short story for Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And I wrote this story that was about a Valentine's Day support group for people like Cleopatra, who people who had been like, had their heart ripped out and stuff like that. And I tied for first place, and I was like, that's amazing. And one of the ladies was like, you should submit. We're just starting our own little company, and you should submit a couple. They call them drabbles, and a drabble means that it's exactly 100 words. It can't be
Hmm.
99. It can't be 101, and it has to tell a complete story in only 100 words about a specific topic. You know what I mean? So I submitted a couple to their first book, and I submitted five, and they accepted three, and they sent me a letter that said these other two were a little, I forget the word that they used, but they were like, we think you should submit them to this other company. So I did, and they accepted them right away. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, that's cool. And then from there was this lady Jen who just was really encouraging. She was like, you need to keep submitting. Like, who
Hmm.
cares if you don't get, if they all don't get picked up? You're gonna grow, you're gonna learn, you're gonna try new things. And from there, they did like 4 books that year, and I ended up getting stories in all 4 books. And then some of their friends were friends at House of Loki and Black Ink and Raven and Drake and all these other companies that were floating around. So I started, as I became friends with them, I would see other notices that were like, hey, we're looking for this story, or hey, we're looking for this kind of story. And I would just, whenever I had an idea, I'd write something and then I would submit it. And I used to be scared to death about it. Like,
That's what I picture of you.
I'm still pretty, if I submit a story and it's a new company, I can't submit a second story until I hear back about the first story. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Now, if it's a company that I've worked with for a while, like Black Ink, I can submit multiple um, stories because I kind of know what to expect, and I know what kind of feedback they're going to give me if I get a rejection. And same with House of Loki. It's still nerve wracking as hell, though. You know what I mean? And despite being friends, you just never know, because like the guy at House of Loki, Callum, like he is pulling no punches. Like if it's not a good story, he's gonna tell you, and he's gonna tell you to change it. Like, you know what I mean? He ain't gonna let you give up either. He's gonna, no, you can do better. You know. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
man. So that's really cool. Like so there's a lot of fun stuff coming out. Like this is out now. The Private Vault of Aliester Crowley is out now, and then we have Home Sweet Horror, which is going to be like a 3-book series. There's so many stories were submitted to this that they had to do it 3 books worth of stories. And so that's going to be coming out on Black Ink Fiction. And I know House of Loki has tons of stuff coming up. They have the Book of Loki, which is like, I'm super excited because it's for this animal rescue in the Netherlands. And it's like a charity anthology where everybody submitted, and all the money that the book makes will go towards, funding this rescue, basically, that rescues dogs. And they have a lot of cool stuff coming out. I'm excited. There's a dragons one. It's so much.
Going back to the horror one you were saying,
Yeah.
this idea just popped in my head, and I haven't talked to this person in probably 2 years. But you should see about our old boy Mike Joy. He's got that. He's got his marketing company too. Maybe,
Marketing Macabre. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Actually, I haven't talked to Mike in a minute. I might do that. Actually, that's a great idea. He's got all the horror websites. He's on the admin sites, and he does all of
yeah.
the reporting and stuff. I bet you I could get him to do some reviews and stuff.
That
That'd be
would be
cool.
a good hookup in that whole
Yeah, yeah.
genre.
Mr. Dead Afterlife himself.
Yeah, right. Wow, what it's about 10 years later, and yeah.
Yeah. He should write a book.
So let's see. DLM Writing says, I think that this is the best Vela idea setup I've heard since Vela started. You're an actual genius.
I can't produce as fast as some people. Like there are people out there that will do a chapter a day, a chapter a week. I just do it when I feel like it. You know what I'm saying? And like
Mhm.
I just put it together in a theme and let it speak for itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then I don't mess with it. It's passive. And like we've talked about this a lot on the other shows, but like passive income is the way to go. You got your
Yeah.
job, do your job, get that income, but set up those small streams, $30 here, $20 here, $100 here. You're right. It does add up at the end of the
Mhm.
day. And even if you're writing these books and you're not trying to make money, you still have to look at it like a business, because it's the business of putting the book in the reader's hands. You know what I mean? Let's take the money out of it. Talk about getting it in their hands, and the only way it's going to get in their hands is if they see it. You know what I mean? So reviews are super important. Reviews are like the lifeblood of any good publishing company. They can
Right.
make or break you. You know what I mean? Like I honestly, dude, I think if we can get two more Canadian reviews, we can get to number one. Like that's how important they are, I think.
Wow.
And that would be great, because I already have a book that I'm in that was number one in the UK, and to have another one be like number one in Canada, and then my book, my parenting book sold really, really well in some Eastern European countries that I won't name right now. Uh, um, that would be cool. Like, could I call myself an internationally best-selling author then? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but nobody's
Technically,
gonna
you
stop
could.
me.
Right, right. That's a good
And I
title to
just want
have.
to do that for everyone else too. You know what I mean? Like I'm not stingy. Like I want to share that experience with every author that's in the private vault book with me. You know what I mean? Like that's not just for me. All 10 of them stories are attached to an author, and every one of them authors will be a number one Canadian best-selling author. You know what I mean? Like that's amazing. Like that's a
Yeah.
gift that I can give to them, that you know what I mean? Like words can't describe, like when you guys were talking about being happy, and like you could tell that I was into it, but like that's how there's no money, there's no value you could put on an experience like that. You know what I mean? Like, and I would be like so humbled and honored to be part of that, like for other people. You know what I mean?
So the question I have to ask is there a superhero story being cooked up in that head of yours?
There is. I can't say much about it because it's in the works. It's a spin-off of a book that's already been out there. I'm not in that book. So this is a spin-off that's about kids and kids superheroes that live in sort of a halfway house for kids superheroes. I can't say
Hmm.
a whole lot about it, but my character's name is the Rooster, and he has a lot of anxiety, and sometimes he clucks. but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of it's gonna be a lot of there's gonna be a lot of Easter eggs because everybody knows how much I love those dramas, and I put Easter eggs in all of my
Absolutely.
stories. Like if you know me and you read these stories, you'll read something, you'll be like, oh, I knew that he loves that song. You know what I mean? Like you'll just catch little bit, and this is gonna be a big one for it. So that I'll
Something that
share
was
with you
probably
when it's
mentioned on
closer.
its. eh, the Easter eggs were probably something that was mentioned on a top 5 list on Totally Driven Radio.
100%. You know, it could be something from one of the episodes of Arrow, or something from Supernatural that somebody said that I thought was funny that one of my characters says. You know what I mean? Like just a little nod to the things that I love and the things that I like. That's what makes it fun. You know what I mean?
Now, do you have? I don't think you do. Do you have like an authors page set up, like a social media authors page?
No, not no. I mean, I guess I should, but honestly, I don't know that I have that many fans to make it worth the effort it would take me to do it. You know what I mean? I have my Teens
Right.
in Crisis page, which I still get a lot of work on, so I don't try to overload that with too much of the author stuff. I have an author website that I update, and I add like the covers to new books that come out and links. But I'm not very active on it. I just try to stay active on social media. I have an Amazon author page where I put all my books on, and I do I review other people's books and stuff. So I think that's pretty much the main. Because you know what it ends up being, man, is you have these Facebook pages, and it ends up just being filled with like you got like 300 followers, 270 of them are other authors. You know what I mean? Like in publishing companies. So you're really doing all that work for like 32 fans, 17 of them you're related to. You know what I mean? Like I'm not sure. Like other people are going to call me out on this and be like, I do this and it works out great. And it totally does. And they're probably 100% right. For me right now, it's not really worth the time and effort that's what I mean that I'm putting into it. um I would rather focus on getting genuine sales and reviews and driving those Amazon and Apple and Goodreads rankings up. And then if people are like, damn, we like this guy, why doesn't he have his own Twitter account or whatever, then I'll. But I do share a lot on Instagram. Like I have my book trailers and I have all of my links and stuff on there. So I mean, if you're just into like Nick Wilkinson, you'll get all my stuff on there. But if you're looking for like just the author, then it's going to be a little harder, I think. But that's fine. I'm selling myself as a brand, not just my writing. You know what I mean? You want to see it all. We want to see pictures of Ronnie. We want goats, and we want, uh, you know what I mean, stuff like that. I see my wife just. Oh yeah,
It's fun to play find the Easter egg for each story.
they get to read everything before it's published, so they get to I test a lot of stuff out on them, and then later on I'll be like, did you get this? Did you catch this? You know what I mean? Do you remember the 19th episode of Arrow? He was wearing a blue shirt just like the guy, and they're like, yeah, no, it's fine, we get it. You can't put a reference to Endgame in every single story. Like,
uh, it's a lot of effort for not a lot of payoff.
I agree. I would rather just engage on the publishers' social media sites. I talk a lot about House of Loki and Black Ink Fiction because I do a lot of work with them, and
Mhm.
they have contributor groups that are like semi-private Facebook groups where you can all go in and chat. They have their own pages. I'd rather go onto their page, and everybody that you're engaging there is already wanting to be there. You know what I mean? I'm
Right,
not trying to
right.
lure them to me with my stories. It's hit or miss. Other people are going to tell you the exact opposite, that they've had tons of luck with their Facebook author page, and that's probably also true. It just depends on the person and the effort and the books and a million other things that are also outside of most of our control on a daily basis.
Which, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to go into my group and tag and see if it works now. The everyone tag.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see, it's not working. Uh, Facebook needs to do something about that because it's like you go to put at everyone, and then there's like 35 everyone tags that come up now. It's like, which one's the legit one?
Right. I see we get comments from DLM Writing, and I just want to give you a shout out because you left a comment on my YouTube page saying that my teaser trailer was awesome, and I appreciate you.
How about that?
Yeah,
See, it
man.
worked.
I mean, people laugh, but if they knew like the struggle it is to get comments. I mean, would you remember like we would have legitimate stars on our show, and people still wouldn't comment. You know what I mean? Like it's so
To
every
get
time they make
comments, to get subscribers, to get likes, to get follows.
absolutely, man. It's just a never-ending battle.
Oh, how about that?
Oh, it's Declan. Oh, okay. I was totally talking about you earlier.
See that?
No, Declan's awesome, man. Younger than me. I'm the old guy. And just full of just the best energy ever. Like just a creator, like at heart,
It's
just
awesome.
like me, a creator. You know what I mean? And that to me surpasses like writing or being an author. Like it's just all about and that's who I was saying created this like very avant-garde story that like maybe some other publishers would have not wanted to take a risk, but I fucking loved it. Like I absolutely, you know what I mean, to be riskier next time, you know what I mean, like oh man, nobody notices the middle waves, they notice the tsunami, you know what I'm saying, like be the tsunami, Declan.
Declan's writing right now.
uh,
That's freaking awesome. Well,
so
dude, this is
yeah.
a lot of fun, man. I'm like seriously, I'm like I am like sincerely super happy and proud of you, man.
I'm thankful for you having me, for making the time for me this week, man. Especially, I know you got a lot going on, and we talk all the time about not having enough time. So I really appreciate it, and it's always a good time to catch up. We got to get Jimmy on here one of these times.
We need to.
I
If
haven't
he'll
talked to
do
him
it,
in a long time.
I talked to him last week. It's I'm gonna hit him up. I'll hit him up tomorrow. I'll be like, actually, now's the time to hit him up because now he's like really he's up all night and sleeps all day. He's become total vampire.
We could do a reunion special. Get Frank, get Moondog.
Yeah, right. Get all of us just to hang out and bust on Janetti about Doctor Who.
Absolutely. Oh man.
Too funny. We're going to do that. We're going to organize that. I like that. It'll be a fun night.
So if anybody wants to pick up any of the books, you can check out The Private Vault of Aliester Crowley is on Amazon. It's on Goodreads. It's on Apple. You can look Black Ink Fiction. They have tons of books on there. I have like 20 of my 36 books are Black Ink Fiction right now. Like they have
Awesome.
some of the most fun calls out there. You know what I mean? They do this versus series where it'll be like I think it was like unicorns versus clowns in hell. Like they have samurai ones, they have some Viking ones, some cowboy ones. They like there's a lot going on there. So check them out. You can check out House of Loki on Facebook as well. They're also on Amazon. All of my Filipino folklore stories and stuff are out there on that. And that's just two of the company. I mean, I could name off another dozen right now that I'd love to show support, but they're the two right now that I'm working really hard and really close with to really produce some quality stuff. And House of Loki is actually a offshoot of Nordic Press, which
Okay.
has like their own stories and their own stuff that I've been trying to get into, but it's just not enough time in the day. You know what I mean? But my buddies Declan, Callum, they all have stories out there in these books too. We're all out there on the front lines fighting. So
Awesome.
look us up, man. Leave a review. Even just say it's 4 or 5 stars, whatever you think it is. You don't even have to write the review. Just leave a rating. You know what I mean? Any little bit helps. It's all that's how we live. You know what I mean? Just like YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, you know what I mean? And of
It's
course,
all about that
Dan,
algorithm.
you got your stuff going on too. So make sure you guys subscribe to the Bay Ragni Show to look at all the videos. Coco Bay, Nashville restaurant reviews still going strong.
It's not going strong. It's going. There's not enough time in the day. Not enough time in the day. I'm telling you, it's crazy. But the link to the Nick's book is down below in the description. It's also dropped in the comments. You can just click on that link, take it right to Amazon, and you can purchase it there.
Absolutely.
And this was fun, dude. I miss you, bro.
I miss you too. We got to do this again.
Absolutely.
We work too well together to not.
A lot of good times and a lot of good, deep conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
That's what I miss. Like I of course I miss talking about Arrow and the Flash and all of that. But like after all that, after we talked about the celebrity gossip, then it was just time for us to just shoot the shit. You know what I mean? And we just I miss hearing about Janetti's dog. You know.
Good old Lucy.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. It was good to be here. I had a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to do this again real soon.
All right.
I'm going to get Janetti. Tell him, yo. Out of hiding.
Sounds good.
Too funny. All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon. Everybody, go down below. Click the link. Buy the book. Amazon. Oh, I just got a sale. Hoo-ha. Yeah. Until next time, everybody.
See you later, guys.
Soon.